Hey everybody, this is Chris McCabe back with another agency interview, part of our Ask an Amazon agency series. I'm with Liz Adamson of Nile Commerce. Liz, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here.
And I guess I haven't seen you since Amazon Accelerate, right? That was the last time we had extensive conversations about the state of the industry, what brands are doing, what they're not doing right, and what Amazon's up to. I think that was
Yeah,
about
yeah, we had a great time in Seattle last fall. It was the last time I think you and I connected in real life.
in person. Yeah. So, and that's several months away. For now, we're talking to a lot of brands and agency owners both about how they're coping with degrees of uncertainty, multiple challenges that are overlapping each other. I'm sure with what you're dealing with brand management, you're seeing it all the time. I'm kind of curious what your top one or two pain points are now. And I'm assuming they're different from what you might have been dealing with 9 months ago, but I'll let you answer on that one.
Yeah, some things are different, some things are the same. I think one of the big concerns that we've seen over the last 9 to 12 months, of course, is the increasing fees, a rising cost per click for advertising. Of course, most recently the tariffs, do we
Mm-hmm.
have tariffs? Do we not have tariffs? That causes a lot of uncertainty. So brands are definitely concerned about how to absorb that cost, raising prices for customers. Will that impact their sales if they are raising price? We had one client this last year did need to put in a price increase to cover some increase in cost of goods. This was before the tariffs and other things. And we did see volume fall. We had good traffic after that price increase, but conversion rate fell, likely due to the higher price. And so brands are struggling with, do I take that risk of raising my price and losing some traffic and conversion, or do I try to eat that cost and lose some
Mm-hmm.
profitability? And so profit is definitely one of the number one things we talk about with brands, especially when brands are coming to us for help on Amazon. It's, okay, let's make sure you're profitable. Let's make sure we're recording all of these fees and these increases and
Yeah.
watching your bottom line and figure out how to best optimize. Do we keep running promotions when that digs into our margins? And so that's definitely been a hot topic. And then the other challenge, which not a new challenge, it's been here for years, is just the constant changes in Amazon advertising.
Yeah.
That's one of my specialties is Amazon advertising, and they have about 100 plus announcements every year with changes in reports or products or how to target customers. And then on top of that, we're seeing cost per clicks go up from about $1.30 to $1.60, which adds into that, increasing
Mhm.
fees. And so I feel like sellers are feeling a pinch. Just this morning I saw a post of more fee increases if you're using Amazon's warehousing systems. Amazon promised no fee increases for 2025, yet they managed to sneak quite a few in.
That was my next question. Did people start the year by saying, hey, did you hear Amazon's not increasing any fees this year? How should we change our strategy based on 12 months of promised fee increases? I mean, that's been rolled back since,
Yeah.
but were people so excited about that at the beginning of the year that you started getting questions about changing strategies, making them more aggressive in some ways, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, when we first heard Amazon say no fee increases, it was definitely a little bit of a sigh of relief. Okay, one thing we don't have to worry about this year. We had plenty of other things we need to look at. And then, yeah, kind of doing that 180 where we have seen additional fees. We do have now tariffs we have to deal with. Some of it is more directed towards supply chain and manufacturing and trying to figure out, should we move countries? And that's a whole multi-year maybe transformation that some brands
Yeah.
are going to have to undergo if they want to get out of China or some of the other countries. Although, again, with the uncertainty in tariffs, they can move to another country and just have a tariff get plopped down on that country as well.
Yeah.
So some of the brands I'm talking to are just really kind of taking a little bit of a wait and see. Let's do the best we can with the information we have today. Let's wait and see. Let's make some contingency plans. Let's see what the market does. And I haven't seen a lot of panic necessarily, just more kind of concern. Let's watch, let's be careful, let's make sure we're clear on what our budgets are so that we don't get overextended should, some of these fees hit.
Yeah. I wondered if people would say, well, now that the fees are back, we're going to have to cut back on our ad spend or something. Maybe they don't say that, but they're going to cut back somewhere. And maybe it won't be the greatest place to cut back. And it's just going to hurt them in a different way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, marketing is typically the first place that cuts start to happen because it can be hard to show that ROI, especially on top of funnel advertising. Um, is becoming easier with Amazon's new reporting, but that is especially the CFOs who want to see that very clear ROI within a short period of time. They'll start cutting those advertising dollars. I just did an audit on account this morning and saw the impacts that cutting those ad dollars did. They're coming
Yeah.
to us for some help with Amazon. They dramatically cut ad dollars at the end of Q4 and sales followed. They did have a very high cost of advertising. It was about 45%.
Hmm.
And so I can see why they may have felt concerned that they needed to maybe save some money and drop that. But unfortunately, their sales tumbled right along with it. And so it becomes more about, let's not cut the ad dollars, but how do we spend those dollars smarter and more effectively so that you're bringing in new to brand customers, that you're increasing lifetime value of those customers. Lifetime value especially becomes more and more important because it usually costs more money to bring in the new customer than it does to retain the customer. And so are you spending dollars on customer retention so that you get a higher ROI in your marketing efforts? But Amazon historically, I remember when sponsored advertising first launched 7, 8 years ago, whenever it
Yeah.
was,
Something like that.
ACOS was really the only metric. ACOS clicks were really the only metrics we had to measure it. And so a lot of us got fixated on ACOS, ROAS, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
And many brands are still, I think, too fixated on that and then making poor budgeting decisions on advertising because they're looking at that ROAS, which is really a short-term metric. It's not a long-term metric. It's not a brand building metric. And so we're kind of overcoming some of those concerns about marketing budget by leveraging some of the new data coming out of Amazon Marketing Cloud. Amazon even has some new data in its consoles, in the advertising console, which can help you see, what is my customer acquisition cost? What is my lifetime value? Where are customers falling out of the marketing funnel and how do I bring them back in? And so just kind of being smarter and using all the cards in your deck and not just the single, you know, search term impression card, so to speak. There's a lot of things you can do now with advertising, a lot of data where you can fine tune that and spend your dollars more wisely is what I'm encouraging brands to do.
Are there brands you work with where you were considering months ago, you were looking at maybe expanding or launching a new SKU this year, but now they have to go so hyper conservatively with their spend that they're not even doing it, not following through with those plans? Or
Not the
like a
brands I'm working
product
with today. I mean,
accessory?
it is a concern,
Yeah.
and we're having to model that in quite carefully. And I would say where the focus is are we launching the right products? If money is tighter, if costs are higher, then we're really focused on, are you launching the right product? Is there good opportunity for this? Or is it going to be such a slugfest that it's really not worth it right now? And so being very careful on picking the right products to launch and put those marketing dollars behind is really where our focus has been.
Cool. What other kinds of questions are you getting from brands you're working with? I mean, not to say that panic might result with being attacked from all sides, but it is starting to feel like there are multiple overlapping challenges from all kinds of business operations and cost perspectives. I mean, are people, you said they're kind of wait and see, but is that across the board with everything they're doing with Amazon, or are they taking a different approach to, things like hiring in terms of, managing some of their operations?
Um, yes and no. Again, it depends on the brand and their life cycle and where they're at. We are seeing brands cut back on staffing. We are seeing brands
Yeah.
tighten up budget. A brand came to me to do a brand launch, and we started outlining the cost of a brand launch and cost of hiring an agency, cost of marketing, and they did suddenly kind of pull back and say, "Oh wow, we're not that cash rich right now. Like we need
Hmm.
to maybe take this a little bit slower." Other brands have had a really solid good few years and have some cash in the bank that they're willing to spend. And I would say it really does vary. I do know that there are brands out there who are well prepared for what's going on, and there's other brands who haven't been as well prepared, or maybe they're just getting started and are a little bit more cash poor and trying
Right.
to make those dollars stretch a little bit further. I have seen changes in, what was the economic report that just came out? Fewer jobs were added this last month, and unemployment rate went up a little bit. I think it is an issue around the country, not even just for brands selling on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious also your take on there's so much content around AI right now. Your experiences, positive or negative with Rufus, but also I've noticed on our side with appeals and restrictions, we see a lot of listings randomly taken down. And we're trying to figure out if it's a glitch with Amazon's automation or some AI that they might be experimenting or tinkering with. Have you seen any of that or encountered any of these kind of glitches when Amazon rewrites a product page description in ways you would rather they didn't,
Yeah,
or anything
yeah,
on Rufus?
that has been an issue for some time now where, Amazon is trying. I just have to chuckle. I feel like they're trying to be helpful, but they're just kind of missing the mark, kind of like maybe when your 5-year-old helps you do chores.
Good
They're
analogy. Wow, that's a good one. Do I have your permission to reuse that? That's good.
Yes, go
That's
ahead.
good.
Go ahead. I feel like Amazon's intentions are good in terms of all the AI and whatnot, but it is backfiring in many cases where it's not understanding. We've seen those cases where Amazon rewrites a listing and it's using a prohibited word, and all of a sudden the entire listing goes down. We've seen even listings where we have been the author of the copy and other things, and somehow some bot has decided that we violated something. We really didn't. We go back, we do an appeal, they reinstate it, and then 2 months later, it's down again because
Yeah.
some bot still can't figure out that, no, that word is not what you think it means. But I had to laugh. This goes way back to before, gosh, it was 2018, I think, or 2019 maybe. One of Amazon's kind of road shows that they did in New Orleans. I remember one of the VPs got up and said,
Oh, Boost.
what was that?
Amazon Boost.
Yes,
I went
FBA
there. Yeah.
Boost. And if anyone was in that New Orleans conference, it was an interesting one. The air conditioning went out at one point.
It was extremely hot.
Yes, yes. Besides the heat, the other takeaway I still remember to this day is when one of Amazon's executives got on stage and said, "Oh, good news. We are increasing automation so that you will never have to talk to a person. We will just fix things for you."
Yep.
And the mood in that room immediately went down. I could feel the intent of, hey, we're trying to be helpful, but the effect was definitely very different. And I think that's continued to extend into what we see with AI today. It's an imperfect model. It's going to make mistakes, and it does require that you have some sort of systems in place to monitor listings that are being suppressed, monitor changes to your listings to make sure that Amazon isn't making a big mistake. And so putting in those systems to give you those alerts, especially if you have a larger catalog, are becoming a necessity. Otherwise, you wake up one morning, your sales have tanked, you're not sure why, and you're digging through and finding that Amazon has changed something that shouldn't have been changed. And so AI has definitely been interesting. It's also done some good. You can use AI to create advertising creatives and design. We couldn't before. I've been experimenting with Rufus, and there's been some very interesting things coming out of that. Again, not perfect. But that's the other challenge that I've been encouraging sellers to be aware of is some of the reports I'm reading is that in general, not necessarily just Amazon, but in general, search volume is expected to go down by 20% over the next 1 to 2 years and being replaced by LLM engagement, whether it's ChatGPT or Rufus or others. And so that becomes another challenge, in addition to all the fees and tariffs and other things we're talking about. We really need to start helping brands adapt to a new AI-based world. And optimization is no longer about keywords. It's about context. It's about telling a story. It's about making sure that the LLM who's scanning your pages can get back to the customer with some information to be able to answer their questions about, are these shoes good in the rain? It needs to be prepared to answer those types of questions.
Good stuff. Well, you've been at this a long time. You've worked with a lot of brands. Any last parting words of wisdom from your current knowledge base or your years of experience helping people in terms of what to look for or what to devote their attention to most?
Yeah, in general, I would say that sellers, especially those who might be newer to the platform, may be feeling panicky that they need to make some big changes. I would say this is pretty much par for the course. I can't think of a year in Amazon that we didn't have some big change happening that year. And frankly, that's what makes Amazon exciting. It also makes it challenging. And my word of advice to sellers is, think before you jump. Don't react to the latest social media post. Don't do what everyone else is doing just because they told you to do it. Look at your business, look at your situation, look at your product niche, look where your strengths and weaknesses are in context of the opportunities and threats that are coming down the pipe from being on an e-commerce platform. But keep your head on your shoulders and make logical, sound decisions that work for the short term and the long term. I hate to see sellers who are doing this knee-jerk reaction of, I need to shut down my as well. You just created a bigger problem now. Engage with an advisor if you need help, but I always question brands. This is par for the course. It is a roller coaster to be on Amazon. And the best way to get through that is to have long-term strategy with pivots along the way as needed, but don't let all the hype scare you off from either launching on the platform or shutting down something that's already working.
Right. Or changing something dramatically and overnight. It's not just social media. There are people who go to certain events or conferences where they go to a talk and then they'll rush out saying, this is the next big thing.
Yeah.
I need to jump on it. I need to try it. I need to learn it. And this happens even with what we do with like appealing restrictions.
Yeah.
And we'll look at it and say, well, is there any factual basis to this? Did you try this out? Was this based on one use case or 10 or 75? like the devil's in the details, right? And so, I think that's good advice across the board for any kind of Amazon account management, brand management. You have to kind of have a steadied hand and think through dramatic changes before you roll them out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They might
Absolutely. Yeah.
You might not be able to just undo them overnight.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Think long term, think strategic. Don't be reactionary.
for sure, there's a lot of 2025 left to sell through. So
Yeah, and I think we're in for a roller coaster. So I think kind
mhm.
of going back to sound business practices, sound decision making, and you'll weather 2025 just fine if you have a level head and are thinking long term strategically.
All right. Thanks so much, Liz Adamson of Nile Commerce, for joining me. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again about all of these wonderful topics. Thanks everyone for listening in to Ask an Amazon Agency. We'll see you next time.